for everyone to catch up, and then we'll start with the show. And we appear to be going out live on YouTube and Facebook. So with that said, hello everyone. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. Happy to be with you here today. So we have a very interesting show, I think, as we're coming up on, I believe it's 15 days before the 2020 election. It's going to be groundbreaking no matter who wins, no matter who loses, but there's so much to be said. Now, for those who have never been on the program before, what we do every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is a live stream with you. You can call into the show at 607-242-1582. You can leave us text messages on Facebook and on YouTube. That is, if Facebook is being good and allowing our program to go through. They don't always. And what we do here is long-form political commentary, talking about the issues, talking with you, going over what's happening and how is it impacting all of us. It's something I think we need to see more of, and it's not about bullet points. It's about the issues and really delving into it a little bit in a conversation with you, the public, not telling you what's going on, but sharing with you and speaking with you and your comments. So I do look forward to anyone who makes any comments. You can, as I said, send them in either on Facebook, YouTube, or of course you can call on 607-242-1582. With that all said, let me get into this, what we're talking about today, because it involves Ice Cube, it involves ACB, Amy Coney Barrett. It involves the 2020 election at the national level, at the local level. It has to do with what we're seeing with Black Lives Matters. It's all connected. And I'm not talking in a conspiracy way, but I'm talking about what's going on in the news. And we saw it with the New York Post. But before I get to that, last week we tried something new, doing it again. It's a little bit of a summary setup, start off. It's a lot shorter than the last one. Please let me know if you like it, if this is a better idea or we can improve it. But before we go further, let me get to that and get that knocked out of the park. 1 second. Where's my camera? There it is. And with that said, go. "2016, a hero then."
For some reason, the Democrats feel like they're exempt from these protests. Like, we're Democrats. Why are you talking to us like this? Go talk to the Republicans. No. Everybody's a little guilty of putting, of turning their back or passing bad legislation, and everybody should be called out on it.
2020, a villain now.
Both campaigns contacted me. Both campaigns wanted to talk to me about the contract with Black America. One campaign said, "We love what you have, but let's really dig into it after the election." And one campaign said, "We love what you have. Do you mind talking to us about it?" And that's what I did. So I didn't run to nobody. And so that was real misleading to me.
2020, a heroine and a villain.
Most of us have multiple notebooks and notes and books and things like that in front of us. Can you hold up what you've been referring to in answering our questions? Is there anything on it?
That letterhead that says United States Senate.
That's impressive.
2020, just the villains.
Historically, news organizations that were considered credible, and by the way, the New York Post was considered as part of that because they have an editorial operation and they have editors and the like. Obviously, you could argue that they make mistakes. Maybe they make them on purpose. By the way, all news organizations, including my own, have made mistakes over time. The question, therefore, then becomes, though, should those stories be distributed and who should, again, be the arbiter of it?
We have never seen mainstream media publications being fact-checked and shut down by or reduced in terms of sharing by a Facebook or Twitter. But we also had never seen them having to do that for a president of the United States.
All right, so that was a neat little experiment. Hopefully, people found it interesting. Sorry about the initial sound. It was a lot louder than I thought it would be. When I recorded it, it didn't sound that loud. So there you go. All right. It gives us a little bit of a flavor, a little bit of an idea of all the different issues that we could be talking about today. All right. There's so much that's going on right now. There's so many issues that are happening right now. Sorry, I'm not 100%, probably 99%. It's not COVID. It's just a cold, and it's lingering. So there's so many things that we can be talking about. And in there, I went through a couple of things. We're talking about Amy Coney Barrett, ACB as she has now come to be known, to replace RGB, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or BG, and on the Supreme Court. And what are we hearing about that? We're hearing the left that is absolutely promising that there's going to be devastation, that you're going to see gay marriage end, you're going to see abortions end, you're going to see everything change, that somehow we're going to be entering into a draconian kind of government. America will cease to exist because we're no longer following the left, because the Supreme Court has gone from a left-leaning court to a right-leaning court. Not something unusual, not something that hasn't happened before. In fact, it's pretty common that the court changes its positions over time. But because we're now going from what the left would like, we're seeing that there's this insanity going on. People are losing their minds over this. They are insanely upset. And you have to ask, but why? Because abortion isn't going to end because it's in the Supreme Court. It would go back to the states. It doesn't end. Guns and the Second Amendment are a fundamental right guaranteed, or actually confirmed by the Constitution. These aren't unusual ideas. These aren't new ideas. The nation has been through these discussions before. Oh, but it's not settled. It's supposed to be settled. Just like when you talk about the environment, it's settled because the left likes the answer that's there. Whether or not it's actually settled doesn't matter. They have the answer they want. Don't mess with it. And we've seen that probably the most obviously on display when we got to see what happened. And who knows, I know I'm going to get some content strikes here. We'll see what Facebook does about this, because I want to show you. When we see that the New York Post came out and revealed emails that they got due to an investigation, and they verified independently, saying that Hunter Biden is raking in cash from Chinese firms, from Russia, on behalf of his family, and that he's helping to distribute that money to his father, who is also involved in it, who happens to be Joe Biden, who happens to be running for the 2020 election on the Democratic ticket. They went insane. They went insane. It was incredible to see how the media lost their minds. We saw for the first time that Twitter shut down the news media. This is a credible, accredited news agency. It's never been done before. We have never seen something like this before. And I mean, it made the news everywhere. Facebook and Twitter reducing distribution of New York Post Hunter Biden story. They didn't just reduce it. Twitter literally removed it. You couldn't talk about it. You couldn't share it. I'm sure everyone's heard about this. And it was crazy. Larry Tanout says, actually, they're unverified emails. Details matter. Larry, actually, they were verified by the New York Post, a credible news agency. Unlike The Atlantic, as an example, to counter, is they came out with an article with 4 unverified sources that has been discredited by 21 people who are actually on the scene, including Michael Bolton, who says if it was actually true, he would have put it in his book, and that would have helped it to become, he would have helped sell his book. So when you say it's unverified, this is a credible news agency. They verified their work. That's how investigations go. So when you say, when the New York Times comes out with an exclusive, that's them verifying their work. Now, I'm not saying that no news agency gets it, is above getting it wrong, as I showed in the video clip where we saw that CNBC admits they get it wrong from time to time. The New York Times has got it wrong from time to time. In fact, almost all the major news agencies have gotten it wrong from time to time. In the 14 years I've been doing this, I got one story wrong once, and I admitted it. The question isn't, is it verified? It is verified. It's that it's unpopular. And Michael decides who is credible and who isn't. No, actually, I don't. Twitter did. Twitter verified, and the entire news media industry verified that the fourth oldest newspaper in the nation, one of the largest newspapers in the nation, is credible. Had nothing to do with me. I didn't make that decision. I didn't make that decision to say that The Atlantic is credible, even though they're running stories that they have since said may not be true. I didn't say they're credible or not. That's the industry. So you can't say, well, Michael, you're picking and choosing. No, that's the industry picking and choosing. You know what? CNN has been proven to make false stories. They're still considered a credible news agency by the news industry. It has nothing to do with me. Do I trust them? Not that much, because they have credibly and consistently made up news stories. How many writers have been fired from the New York Times for making up stories? Now, if it comes out that this story, which so far appears to be correct and therefore is verified, if it turns out that it's some big hoax, hey, go at them. But that's not the case. And to say, well, I don't trust them. Do you trust CNN? Because they did worse. Do you trust the New York Times? Because they did worse. They've literally been caught making up, fabricating complete stories. Rolling Stones, the Atlantic. So if you want to say, well, I don't know if I can trust them, then there is no news media agency you can trust out there. And that doesn't justify Twitter, because all of those stories I just mentioned, from The Atlantic, from the New York Times, from CNN, from Rolling Stone magazine, guess what? Twitter didn't stop any of those stories. Not before or even after they were found to be discreditable, to find that they were false. Twitter didn't remove them. Twitter didn't block the CNN. They didn't block the New York Times. They didn't block The Atlantic or Rolling Stone. They allowed people to share those articles. So if we're saying, and this is the argument that Twitter's making, well, it's not credible. They shared the Snowden hacked emails. This is hypocrisy at its maximum. I mean, I do thank you for asking the question, Larry. I really, I do thank you for asking the question, Larry, because it is important. Are they credible? How do we figure out, are they credible? Do we believe them? And is Twitter and Facebook correct? Were they correct in saying, hey, here's this story. We don't like this story. Let's eliminate this story. And to be fair to Facebook, they didn't stop people. They just shadow banned it. This is the definition of shadow banning that I have talked about for years, where you see one of the social media giants going out there and they make it difficult, almost impossible for you to find a story because you won't, it's not in their algorithms. They're going to make it almost impossible. You have to nearly be perfect in finding that story and putting in the correct search terms for it to pop up. It's called shadow banning. It's called censorship of the worst sort. And it violates the very rules of Facebook and Twitter if they're applying it equally to everyone, which they are not. So this Hunter Biden story has resulted in the fact that we're going to see there's been a subpoena for the Twitter CEO, Jack Dorsey, to go in front of Congress again. It's not the first time. Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter have all appeared before the Congress several times because they, in fact, have been manipulating data many times. I've had several stories where Jack Dorsey was out and admitted there was an algorithm in Twitter that blocked 800,000 conservatives and Republicans and hid them, shadow banned them, including members of Congress. In fact, with this action by Twitter, they literally blocked the United States government from sharing information with the public. That's just insane. And yes, and Larry goes on to say, it's a crazy time. He says, it's a crazy time, but these social media companies need to start stopping fake or unverified news. But where does that start and stop? Well, let me try and make that clear for you, Larry. And by the way, Gene, I do see you. Where have you been? I've just been a little under the weather. But let's understand this. Where does it start? Where does it stop? It doesn't start or stop with a verified news agency, a credible news agency that has existed for well over 100 years now, 160 years, I believe. And it doesn't start with blocking them. If you don't agree with the story, if you think the story has a question, that's your choice as the public. It's not the choice of Twitter. Remember, Twitter and Facebook say that they are not publishers, which means they're not like myself. They're not like the New York Times. They're not like CNN. They are just putting out what the public is sharing, conversations between individuals. Well, if that's what they're doing, they don't get to say this is real and that isn't real. That's not their job. It's not their job to say, hey, that's fake news. Here's another story. That's not their job. That's your job. That's your job as a member of the public, not theirs. And if they're saying it is their job, then they're publishers, and therefore what they are doing is something they should be sued for and is illegal. And there's one of the big things. Now, everyone's caught up in, and I know Larry went on to say, I'd say they are not on one side or the other. Zuckerberg was just being hammered by AOC and the left on Capitol Hill recently. Both sides are mad now. That means they're trying. I disagree incredibly. But, and they're also private companies. They have a right to do what they want. They're not government. And conservatives are supposed to believe in them having the right to do what they want. Absolutely, I do. I believe that any company should do as they advertise, that they have the right to run their companies as their rules are set. Except that's not what we see with Facebook, Twitter, or Google. They don't follow their own rules. They are misrepresenting their companies. They are misrepresenting how they treat people. They are censoring people against the rules that they have established themselves. Therefore, these companies are liable for lying to the public. A company cannot say, hey, I have this wonderful drink. And if you have this drink, then you're going to be cured of the common cold. You can't lie to the public, even though you're a private company. They are lying to the public, and they are influencing the public in an election, which is a crime. And that's a problem. That is the election interference that we saw the Democratic Party spend, 3 years investigating, spending, I believe it was 32 million US taxpayer dollars to find out that their story was wrong. And in fact, they were the culprits under Hillary Clinton. So just because they're a private company, not an excuse. I know it's an excuse people like to use. It's not an excuse. It doesn't work. And that's why they're showing up in front of the Senate again. Not the first time, again, because they are violating their own rules and they are treating the public poorly. They're abusing the public, and that is not legal. And by the way, everything that you mentioned, Larry, we saw that the Post itself came out with an editorial, given it's themselves talking about themselves, but they came out and they addressed the very same things that I'm speaking about here. How Jack Dorsey didn't even have a proper answer about why they're doing this. Dorsey himself admitted that they were blocking the story with zero context as to why they were blocking things. They just did it. And even he says it was unacceptable, because it is unacceptable, because it was wrong. Excuse me, folks. Otto says, excuse me, what if you don't follow the far left? From what I have seen, you're demonized and slandered or worse. I'm going to get to that. And you're right. And I'm going to get to that because that's what we're seeing here. And yes, this Dorsey character is not to be trusted. Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter. And Otto goes on to say all those links that got removed in private messages in regards to the recent hack of Biden's son. See, and that's where it really gets me. And that's something that, again, private company, fantastic. You provide this ability for individuals on your network because you're not a publisher, because you're not the originator of the content. You say people are using your system. Well, if I'm using your system to share an idea with a friend of mine, how can you go into that system and stop me? If your job is just to connect me to other people, then you are violating your very own rules, and that is punishable. You are liable. They should be liable to have lawsuits against them, which is the old section 230, which says, if you do these things, then you are a publisher because you are controlling the content and it is your content, not a platform that just lets people share information. That's the simple argument. And we see this. And they are doing this specifically and targeted to an outcome in the election that they prefer. And you can say, oh, AOC doesn't like the Democratic Party. AOC is a democratic socialist. She wants socialism. The fact that she wants to attack any company that the government doesn't own does not change the fact that she's a democratic socialist. She doesn't like Facebook and Twitter. She doesn't like any company that exists that isn't owned by the government. That's why she wants the Green New Deal, which would destroy businesses across the country, tens of thousands of businesses, because it's insanity. Now, we received another message from Otto. It says peer-to-peer technology means we can still control our feeds, but retain freedom of speech. Otto goes on to say, at least for now, we still have the privacy and freedom of mind, but that even that is questionable. It is very questionable, as we're showing. Because every single thing that Jack Dorsey and Twitter have said violates their own rules, violates their own terms. It violates their proven and consistent manner of reacting to others in the media. They have had no problem putting out anything that is negative towards Republicans, conservatives, libertarians, and President Trump. But they seem to be more than willing to shadow ban and eliminate any thoughts, any ideas, any evidence that says, hey, maybe Democrats aren't so great either. That's a problem. And let me be very clear about something about this, because I've heard people say, well, Mike, you're biased. I'm a Republican political commentator. I have never denied that. I've been saying that for 14 years. I am not a journalist. I am not a neutral news source. I never have been. I am a Republican political commentator. I also do hard news, which is interviews and covering live events, which may or may not contain some of my commentary, except in the interviews where I ask straight news. Look at my interview with Spike Cohen just a few weeks ago. You can look at, in my local region, interviews I've done with all Democratic candidates and elected officials, like Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo, County Executive Jason Garnar, many others, because even though I may be critical of them as a commentary, when I'm speaking with them in an interview, that is hard news, and that is meant to only be, here's the question, give me your answer. But at least, and the difference here is, I am honest, I am upfront. When I tell you, when I get on here, I'm doing political commentary. I'm not doing news. And I'm not hiding from news that exists. I'm saying, okay, here's the news. Matter of fact, if you notice, almost every one of my sources that I provide are from the left, from left-leaning companies. This is their way of representing the news. Or I go to completely neutral sites. I almost never use a right-leaning media source if I don't have to. Just so that you can understand why I can say and where is the evidence, and that's why I also provide you the links in the description. Let me get back to some of the comments because I missed a couple. Otto says, Jason Lanier, a technologist, has some nice books on who owns the future, where he talks about the power concentration to who owns the biggest computer. The first example of this being the word I can't use because algorithms, and cataloging the Jews during the Holocaust. IBM in the Holocaust, the strategic alliance between a certain type of Germans and America's most powerful corporation. Yeah. Well, it's even worse than that. Because as we think about it, and I have it up here, it's something I wanted to get to. We have seen how, where is that article? I had it for you guys because I knew I wanted to talk about it. It's the fact that for a long time now, Google, there it is. This is an article by CNN, the BBC News. And this was back in 2014. In 2014, the BBC News was checking out and talking about how Google manipulates elections. Okay, and in this, and this is from, according to Robert Epstein, who's a senior research psychologist at the American Institute for Behavioral Research and Technology. He goes on, he mentions in here that with Google's virtual monopoly on research, Google has the power to flip the outcomes of close elections easily and without anyone knowing. That, he goes on to say, search rankings have this powerful effect on votes for the same reason that they have on consumer behavior. That the higher the ranking, the more people believe and trust the content, mistakenly assuming that some important and omniscient genie has carefully evaluated each web page and put the best ones first, which is absolutely not true. And the BBC goes on to say that based on his research, an election with a 2.9% margin could be changed. Gee, sounds like the election that we saw in 2016 or 2000, and very possibly the election in 2020. And we have companies right now that are doing the same thing. Because if Google in 2014 had the ability to manipulate elections, according to the BBC article, what do you think Twitter and Facebook have? They too can affect consumers and make them believe that something that's a viral video is more true than anything else. That's the danger. That's the problem. That's the concern I have. And you can say, Mike, well, I don't agree. That's fine. You don't have to. Go back to the source material, check it out for yourself, make your own decision. But don't hide from the fact that when you put in terms into a search engine, it's very edited on what you're getting out. And that we have had these companies in front of Congress admit Facebook Facebook, Twitter, Google have all admitted to Congress in 2017, amongst other times, where they have said that yes, their algorithms manipulate the way you see information and that they do hide information from you. They almost always say when they get caught, well, that was, we've only had that problem for 18 months. It was an error. Ooh, we're trying to fix it and make it better. Oops, sorry. Yeah, how many elections did they affect? How many people did they influence unjustifiably? And with a specific ideology in place. Again, it's one thing if they say, we are a left-leaning, Google, Facebook, they're far left. Twitter, they promote the far left. They are a far left-leaning organization. And as a private company, they can be. And they say that, and if you still use their service, hey, you know what you're going to get. If you're a conservative, you're not going to be heard. That's one thing if I know that's the truth. If you tell me I'm going to be heard just like everyone else, and then you shadow ban me, you block me being able to send a message to people directly, then no, that's manipulation. That's censorship. That is false advertising. And this is right before an election, the time when you want to know the very, very most. So this is leading into other problems. And I know there's more comments here. I'm going to try and get to them as soon as I can. But there's a lot more problems here. Now, if you don't agree, that's fine. Send me a comment on Facebook, on YouTube. Call into the show, 607-242-1582. Tell me how I am wrong. Tell me what I have just described and gone into for like 20 minutes now. Tell me how that isn't the truth. Tell me how that isn't biased. Tell me how that isn't unfair. Tell me how you not knowing this, them hiding these facts from you, isn't an unfair advantage. If you think I'm wrong, please explain. Because Twitter can't, Facebook can't, Google can't, and they don't try and say that. That's not their argument. And this is all leading up. Now, when you see this, this is building up a lot of pressure in the country. This is really making things intense. So much so that we're suddenly seeing a lot more conversation actually about Second Civil War. Whether it's individuals over in Michigan trying to capture Governor Whitmer, or whether it's just in general conversation, we've heard that the far left have said several times that they are planning to protest if we do not see a landslide victory for Joe Biden, which in fact means Kamala Harris, based on the 25th Amendment that Nancy Pelosi is trying to put through Congress right now. Saying it's for Trump, it's really for Biden in case he wins. That's my supposition. But we are seeing that they are getting ready in 15 days, 9 hours, and 56 minutes. There is going to be a riot. There are going to be riots planned for across the country. How do I know that? Because as you see on your screen right now, Protect the Results is the statement, the confirmation of what we have heard for a month or two now, where we see the far left saying, if you don't do what we want, we're going to have riots. We're going to burn down cities, just like they've been doing for the last 130 days. Protect the Results shows you, based on your zip code, and I happen to have my zip code here and there already, shows you different areas where they are organizing protests. And I guarantee you, look at this screenshot this. Watch on after the election. These are going to be the very first places that are going to burst into riot. That's my opinion. You may not agree. This is what I believe. Will they have protests? Absolutely. Will those protests break out into riots? Absolutely. Yes, they will. And that's going to be in Oneida County. That's going to be in central New York. That's going to be in Wilkes-Barre. That's going to be in Delaware County. That's just, and if you think, well, that's not so bad, Mike. For events, Yeah. Well, guess what? They have events across the country. I want to make sure that I bring it up so you can see the U.S. map. These guys are looking to do this everywhere. Everywhere, in particular, in more liberal strongholds, far left strongholds, where BLM has been protesting to intimidate you. This is, I would tell you that protect the results is a form of intimidation being used against you. Do what we say, or we will burn down the cities. As they have said several times already, that if Donald Trump were to win, well, they're going to have riots. Guess what? As I've said before, even if Donald Trump loses, if Joe Biden wins, they're going to have riots anyway. Because the reason why they're getting their way in cities like Seattle, in Portland, in Austin, in New York City, across the country, in Rochester and Lancaster, they're getting what they want because they're causing protests, because they're burning down buildings and threatening people's lives and businesses. And they want more power. They want the United States to be a socialist nation, which means they do more of that to get more. So as much as you may see Joe Biden and Kamala Harris appease them, in fact, on their side, because they are paying for these people to be taken out of jail. They're paying their bails. Yes, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden campaign have paid to take the protesters as they're arrested and put them back on the streets so that they will recommit more crimes. This has been proven in city after city, Seattle, Portland, city after city. We have seen this happen. And so, yeah, that means there's going to be a protest and a riot no matter who wins. If you think, well, I just won't vote, you're not going to stop them from continuing to go out and riot, because it's about power. It has nothing to do about whether George Floyd or Jacob Blake or any of these guys are given their justice or not. And many of them don't deserve it. Jacob Blake, he was a criminal. He was fighting the police. He was going for a weapon. He had a weapon on him. He's a rapist. Yeah, I'm not upset he got shot. I'm really not. Nor should you. He's not a hero. He's not a hero. Rayshard Brooks, not a hero. Not a good person. Not doing the right thing. Fighting with the police, getting armed weapons and trying to attack them and others. That's not going to be conducive. You caused the problem that caused you to get killed. That's your problem. You know, oh, the risk of being a police officer is you might get killed. The risk of being a criminal is you might get killed because you're a criminal fighting and resisting the police. Let's be honest with people about that stuff, folks. So, a couple of comments here. Otto's been very busy today, mentioning BBC News, London riots in 2011, social media's role in the riots, London riots, social media, and this is in London. Otto, are you in England? I know I do cover some stuff, and I will get to it in a second. It's just, you're mentioning a lot of British coverage. Goes on to say, Otto says the Zeitgeist is vulnerable to such rapidly spreading mind viruses. The Ministry of Truth deleted the videos of Biden being a creep during those photo shoots. There's a lot of pictures of Joe Biden being Scotland. I thought so. And thank you. Glad to see that over across the pond we have some attention, some people watching. I thank you for being involved. We've seen a lot of really crazy things that have been said and hidden, but a lot of it's still getting out. But think, if this is, look at the extent they are willing to go through to manipulate people's emotions to make you feel like, well, there's only good news on Biden. If you watch CNN, MSNBC, you only see the good things about Biden. You haven't noticed that he's broken down several times, that when he had his debate with President Trump, there were 3 separate instances where he started to break down and didn't know where he was, couldn't answer the question. We saw that in the town hall. But they don't focus on that. They don't want to, they're hiding. The news media, ABC, CBS, NBC, never mentioned a single word about the first or even the second emails that are showing that Hunter Biden has been peddling his influence through his father and receiving tens of millions of dollars for it in some cases. That's scary. They don't share with people that there is conversation going on across America from the left as well as the right, saying that there's going to be a civil war. In particular, the left has been very, very clear saying, hey, you're going to get it if you don't do what we say. That's the whole thing about the Chaz, the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, and the autonomous zone that was attempted in Atlanta and across the country, in Dallas, in Austin. These things are happening. They're saying you have to you must defund the police. This is one of the things that we hear from BLM, from Antifa, defund the police, which means disband the police, like they're trying to do in Minneapolis. And then they're wondering, why is the crime going through the roof? Why is the crime in New York City going through the roof as we take away police officers, as we disband the police? Because we defunded them. And defunding is disbanding. You cannot give me one example where we have defunded the police and that has not meant disbanding some amount of the police. It is a lie to say that defunding the police doesn't mean getting less police. It is an absolute fact and direct consequence of it. And when people lie to you about that, that's wrong. And you have the news media doing that. I wanted to get into, do you remember, actually, Otto says, if we're not careful, we'll end up like China. Yeah, it's very, very possible. He also goes on to say, there are 7 people to a single CCTV camera, a social credit system. If you anger the state, you will not be able to rent, work, or travel. For people who don't know, in the British Isles, there are, especially downtown in some of the larger cities, London in particular, there are closed circuit TVs. There is a system of cameras watching basically everything and watching you everywhere. It's Big Brother in effect. And it's meant to lower crime, which doesn't really happen. Otherwise, they wouldn't be trying to ban knife attacks in London. So it is a imperfect, if not failed, idea. And gun crime does still exist. And crime still does exist. But they got cameras watching everyone, everywhere, all the time. For your safety, of course. You lose that privacy because it's for your safety, which I have never agreed with, and I think the Brits got wrong there. But I wanted to get into Kanye for a second. Do you remember that Kanye West, as I showed, I didn't show it in the video. Do you remember back in 2014, 2005, Kanye West was a hero of the left because he said, George Bush hates black people because he's upset about what happened with the Katrina hurricane. And then that same Kanye, just a couple years later in 2018, was evil. And they had to stop him. They had to get rid of his business. They had to make him a pauper. He was a horrible, evil man because he suddenly said, you know what? President Trump's been doing all right for black people. He's not a bad president. Oh my God, you can't say that. Wait a minute. Kanye went from hating Republicans to loving Republicans. He's a sellout. Wait a minute, let's get this right. He said he didn't like the policies of George Bush, which is a man, not the party. And then he said he liked President Trump, the man, not the party. You can do both. You can do that, except if you happen to be black, a man, and in America. No, you can't do that. And now we see it with Ice Cube. I know you've been hearing about Ice Cube because Ice Cube, as I did have in the video, as you saw, Ice Cube was about holding any elected official accountable. By the way, I would ask everyone who's watching this, because you saw the video when I put that out, when he was speaking with Politico in 2016, he was considered a hero because he said he didn't really trust, he didn't want to work with President Trump. Although he did say, hey, he's a great businessman and America loves Donald Trump. But what he said is, let's hold all the parties, including the Democrats, accountable. Let me ask everyone who's watching this. When was the last time you saw anyone highlight that part of the article? When was that interview anyone told you, hey, at the same time that we saw Ice Cube say, well, Trump, not so great, he also said, hey, Democrats have to be held accountable. They have to do the right thing, and they should do more for black people. Did you see that anywhere else? Have you heard anyone in the news media mention that? Because that means he has been consistent. As I showed in a different tweet, what we saw with Ice Cube and what he said was he spoke to Biden and he spoke to Trump. Biden said, vote for me and we'll talk about it afterwards, which has resulted in 47 years of doing nothing for black people, according to the far left. According to the very left that is trying to elect Joe Biden has done nothing positive for black people for 47 years. And when we see Ice Cube come to Joe Biden and say, I have this plan, Joe Biden says, well, just vote for me and we'll talk about it later. And then when he goes and gives that same exact plan to the other side, to Donald Trump and the Republicans, Donald Trump says, hey, let's have a conversation about that. Let me change my plan called the Platinum Plan. He changed his plan. He took action immediately. He did something. But what we see coming from the left, and in particular on Twitter, the home of the far left, it's been well spread out there that, hey, what's up with your boy Ice Cube retweeting a video comparing Biden to Hitler with him dressed as Donald Trump? Ooh, he has sold out. That's it. Ice Cube is sold out. There are a lot of comments. Dr. Boyce Watkins was one I wanted to bring up. She says, anybody know of any celebrities who have stated public support for what Ice Cube is doing for black people? Maybe we should be taking notes. Their silence is deafening. Gee, I tend to agree with that. It is deafening to hear that Ice Cube went to both political parties, said, who is going to go and work with me? Trump said yes. Biden said no. It's that simple. And he started to work with Trump on getting his plan out there. And as he went on, as I showed you in the video clip, which I have the whole thing, and I'll link to it again in the description, he went on to tell, he had an argument with Chris Cuomo. Chris Cuomo's only argument in the Friday CNN interview was saying, well, no, hey, black people, did you notice? He's saying he's not on Trump's team. He's not endorsing President Trump. That's all that Chris Cuomo wanted to get out of his interview. 5 minutes. All he wanted to hear was, you're not on Trump's team. You're not endorsing President Trump. Really? That was the only thing he had that was important to him? It wasn't, hey, why didn't Biden say, yes, let me jump on that right now in this election and let me show the people that I'm willing to do something for them. Let me earn the black vote, instead of assuming that you're not black if you don't vote Democrat. That's Biden. You ain't black if you don't vote Democrat. That's Biden. Are you surprised that when Ice Cube came to him and said, I have a plan that can empower black people to start new businesses and to become homeowners and business owners, that Biden said, yeah, great. Tell me after the election, vote for me. And Ice Cube's the bad guy? Do you notice how we absolutely demonize anyone who does something the far left doesn't like, and the social media pushes it out there hard? Don Lemon did a great job. Ice Cube had a comment that Don Lemon was some punk, blah, blah, you just did. If you have any balls, I need to be on your show on Monday night at 10 p.m. Apparently, Don Lemon was the reason that CNN wouldn't do interviews with Ice Cube. By the way, his name is O'Shea Jackson. But they had to. They had to react to this because they had to put him on so that they could get Ice Cube to say, but you're not endorsing President Trump. They had to. Even though Don Lemon apparently was trying to make sure that he couldn't be on because, you know, he dared to try and help black people rather than help the Democratic Party. That's kind of sad. Otto says that Ice Cube says CNN canceled his interview with Chris Cuomo because they can't handle the truth after it emerged the rapper has been working with Trump on a plan for black Americans. Yes, Ice Cube said that directly. As he also directly stated to the public that he went to both parties. He didn't pick a side. He said, here's the offer. Who's going to pick up the offer? Who's going to work with me? He's not working with them. They're working with him. And he's evil and somehow a sellout. You know what? Ice Cube sold out back in the day, back in the early 90s in NWA, when he became worth $160 million for saying words on the radio that I can't say on YouTube to get filthy rich and make the owners of those record stations, industry, the music industry, even richer. And by the way, also degrading the black community. That's my personal thought. You don't have to agree with it, but I think that. And every one of those rappers, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, they sold out. They moved out of the ghetto. They really haven't done much. And, I give Ice Cube credit that at least he's trying to do something to help black people give back. But for overwhelmingly, and for most of his life now, he has sold out. He's not connected to what's going on in the ghetto. He never really was. He was a middle-class kid to start with. But that's a different argument. Gone are the days of Gil Scott Heron and Curtis Mayfield. Yes, it is long, long gone. By the way, folks, Otto has been, our friend from Scotland, has been speaking a lot. You are Americans watching this. You are British watching this. We have audiences in Abu Dhabi. We have audiences that are, believe it or not, in China. We have people who are in Japan. We have people in Canada. You're all welcome to make a comment. You're all welcome to speak freely if you can, because I know in North Korea, you can't. And yeah, we do have a couple of viewers, and I do see where this reaches around the world. And yeah, we do have a couple of people in North Korea, and I know they can't respond legally because they have no freedom of speech, because they do have socialism there. I know the same problem exists in China, in Venezuela, where you can't speak because there is no freedom, because they are socialists, like the far left would like to make America. That being said, you still can make a comment from the rest of the free world, and you can leave your thoughts here on Facebook, on YouTube. Also, you can call into 607-242-1582. I would prefer if it's coming from America, so I know that it's not a fake call, and it's probably going to cost you a whole lot less money. But you are free to call in as well. So I was just mentioning, and where is it? I was talking about the democratic socialism, what we see in North Korea, what we see in China, what we see in Venezuela, which according to the New York Times, as we have reported before, has gone out and killed over 5,000 of its own citizens because they took away the Second Amendment rights from them. And then they imposed socialism on them and killed their own people and starving their own people. And their people are flooding out into other nations, taking disease with them because as socialism came in, healthcare went down, food went down, the ability to protect yourself went down. And now those people are spreading out. And there was in 2018, there was an article from the WHO World Health Organization, identifying that South America has had an outbreak of measles, mumps, and other communicable diseases that otherwise were considered to be cured, coming from Venezuela. This is what you get from socialism. Chicago, the Moscow of the Midwest. Yes, it is. That was from Hot, and she mentions Chicago is the hot Moscow of the Midwest. And yes, it is. And we've seen that for over 60 years. Actually, yeah, over 60 years. Chicago has completely failed its people. Completely failed its people. I haven't looked yet, but I will make a bet that between 5 to 15 people were shot and killed in Chicago this weekend already. I don't even have to look it up. Someone can look it up for me. I would say that they have at least 5, probably closer to 15 people were killed in Chicago this weekend, just like last weekend, and the weekend before that, and the weekend before that. And no one talks about it. Democrats, we have the best system. We have the answers. Joe Biden, 47 years. We can fix America. You can't fix Chicago. But let's go into the Democratic Socialists, because this is the far left. And again, notice this theme. If you disagree with the left, you are a problem. When you disagree with the left, as we saw this weekend in Ithaca, and Ithaca, for people who don't know upstate New York, it's part of the Finger Lake region. It is a hotbed of liberalism. It is a hippie town. These are progressives there. That is a well-known fact. I'm not making it up. And in Ithaca, this weekend, we saw on the 17th, yesterday, a group of individuals, Americans, who have the freedom of speech, have the freedom to assemble, who have the freedom to have their own ideas expressed, went out and said, hey, we support President Trump. And the Democratic Socialists, the Democratic Socialist Party, the fringe part of the Democratic Party, decided to have violent altercations and started fights with those people because they have an idea that is different than their own. In fact, I have it here. They said, one of the leaders of the group, I believe it was here, this is Saunders. I'll get to her name. One of the leaders of the Democratic Socialist Party says that me initiating some grabbing flags or whatever I had to do to start people getting riled up, it happened. We moved people off the premises. This is against their will. The Trump supporters went inside. It helped us. I think that was progression. It was a way to show that this is our town and we want peace and we want justice. You do not get peace by threatening people and forcing them against their will to do what you want. That's not peace. It's not justice to commit a crime against someone because they have a different opinion. That's not justice. That's not peace. And no, you are not justified in riling up people, otherwise known as inciting violence, which is expressly not guaranteed by the First Amendment, not guaranteed by the not justified by the free speech. That isn't your right. You do not have a right to incite violence, to cause harm. You do not have that right. No one has that right. That is not a right. That is a crime. The Democratic Socialists committed crimes against other Americans for the simple fact that those Americans had a different opinion. Kind of like what we see with Ice Cube, kind of like what we're seeing with Facebook and Twitter. You're under attack because you dared to have a different opinion. I know I've gone through this myself personally. I am a candidate for an election. I don't talk about it much on this program. But I did a Back the Blue event supporting police because my police department in my region has done an exceptional job. There has been 0 cases of police abuse proven by the body cams that those police officers have worn for years. Not one proven case. None. They lead the state. Why wouldn't I celebrate that? Why wouldn't anyone, especially the people in BLM who say they want police reform, they want better police? You got better police. There are no police abuse actions for years. You're getting what you want. And they were upset, incensed. They attacked me physically. Just like they did in Ithaca, they're attacking people physically, trying to intimidate and instill fear and to make people submit against their will. That's not freedom. That's not peace. That's not justice. I cannot make that more clear. And let me restate something that I have said before. As an individual, as an elected, as a candidate, as a member of the press. No soundbites allowed. I, Michael Vasquez, and my company, MV Consulting, which owns No Soundbites Allowed, in every format, in every medium, anywhere I go, I denounce any organization that promotes fear, intimidation, and physical threats to be able to manipulate people and force people to submit against their will to an ideology. I don't care whose it is. That's white, black, left, right. It doesn't matter. But I have to say, the only places I see people demanding that I submit, that anyone submit, is the far left. Groups like BLM, Black Lives Matters, like Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT, like Antifa, like the Democratic Socialists, the fringe of the Democratic Party. And I know people have said, Mike, well, they're all over. They're huge. No, they're not. They're just really, really loud. And they get really good press coverage because the media sells. Violence sells. If you can't sell sex on TV, you sell violence. That's what news agencies do these days. They try and twist your mind to get an emotional response to do what they want, and they do it by selling you either sex or violence. That's in the TV programming. That's in the news. That's all they're doing. And that's why they give attention to people like the Democratic Socialists of Ithaca, part of the Democratic Party, which Hot mentions is our mayor is a communist lesbian. May or may not be true. I can't respond to that because I don't know her personally. I haven't interviewed her. But what I can say is, and I want to get her name so I can properly put this out here. And I want to make sure I credit her for the violence and the crime that she is. It was Dakota Ingram and where's the other woman? Dakota Ingram is one of the individuals. And by the way, if you think I'm making up that it's the Democratic, no. The counter-protest was organized by the local Democratic Socialists of America. I'm not making this up, folks. I don't have to. It's in black and white. This is in the left-leaning press. I don't need to make it up. It's out there. It's worded to make you think that this is a good thing. It's worded in a way so that they feel good about themselves. But that's not, they dare to say that they haven't been heard throughout the entire pandemic. It's a lie. And I will have the link in the description so you can read the entire article for yourself. It is a very pro-Democratic Socialist article. Its writing is promoting what they did. And the problem is, what they did is a crime, as they admit they are willing to do. Isn't that terrifying? That so far today I've shown you, we have seen factions in this country that are willing to deny you information, to manipulate what you know, to deny you the ability to find out the facts, that are willing to demonize you if you dare say anything that they don't like, and they are willing to use violence against you to get an outcome that they want. How does any of that sound like America? How does it not sound like China or Venezuela or North Korea or Russia, where I've lived? I've lived in Russia. This sounds like Russia to me during the Soviet Union days. Please, if you think I'm wrong, if I have misrepresented the far left in any way, if I have misrepresented the movement in America towards socialism in any way, please call in 607-242-1582. Make the call. Tell me I'm wrong. Larry, Tana, Larry, you started this with some of your comments. Please tell me, am I wrong? Are my facts that I am providing to you from left-leaning sources, is that incorrect? Am I misunderstanding the information? Am I drawing the wrong conclusion from the facts that they are providing to us to get that conclusion? This is why the 2020 election is vital. This is why every election is vital. This is why you should vote in person and not by mail, which is manipulated. Absentee ballots if you must, because that has some level of higher protection. But if you're just entering a generic ballot by mail, do you truly believe that the organizations that we are identifying right now, where we know that post offices have thrown in the garbage ballots, that they have thrown in ditches ballots, in some cases, thousands of ballots? Do you think that's honestly going to represent your vote? Because, oops, hang on. Camera died. Do you think that's actually going to accurately represent your vote? That these people, that the United States Postal Service, the union, has endorsed Joe Biden? Do you think that the people who endorsed Joe Biden have an interest in making sure that your ballot, especially, it could be for Joe Jorgensen, who's a libertarian candidate, it could be for Donald Trump. But do you think they're honestly going to take care of your ballot and get it out there properly for the public? Most will. Again, but the fringe of the Democratic Party won't. The fringe of the Democratic Party, which is somewhere around only 7, maybe 10% of the Democratic Party. The highest estimate I've ever seen is 20% of the Democratic Party are the far left. They are the plot, the BLM, the Antifa, the Democratic Socialists. All of them combined make up somewhere around 7 to 10% of the Democratic Party. That's it. They are tiny. They are a sliver. Roughly 25% of America is Democrats. About 27% are Republicans. Of that sliver of those numbers, of the 25% of America that is Democrat, only 7% of that is also Democratic Socialist, is someone who wants to destroy the American government. But they get so much press. And they are allowed to do things like destroy cities like Minnesota, like Seattle, Portland, Austin, New York City, Rochester, Ithaca. They're allowed to use violence, and they're allowed to be arrested and have Kamala Harris, Biden, and a bunch of Hollywood elites turn around and bail them out so they can go back and do it again. Do you really think those people are in looking out for your best interest? Or do you think maybe they're looking out for their power and they want control? And they don't care about you. They don't care about black, white, they don't care about any of that. They just want charge. They want to be in power. And you happen to be an inconvenient path to that power. You need to vote, folks. But you know what? You don't have to vote the way I'm saying. You can vote for Joe Jorgensen. You can write in Mickey Mouse. You can write in Donald Duck. You can write in my name. That'd be funny. That would be really funny if I even got 500 votes for president. I'd laugh. But you can vote for anyone you want. I'm not here to tell you, you must do this. See, I believe in freedom. Yes, Larry, I believe in the freedom of individuals to make their own choices, even if those choices are bad choices. even if those are choices I don't agree with. That's called freedom. That's part of the risk of freedom. I don't need to go out there and get people riled up by doing whatever I had to do. I don't use force to get people to move from one place or another, or to change their mind, or to hide from the ability to be able to say that they proudly believe in whatever it is they believe. I don't care if you're a flat earther. You should be able to publicly say, I'm a flat earther. I don't have to agree with you. I don't need to think that you're right, but I sure as HLL to believe that you should be able to say that, because otherwise I can't say what I want to say. It's simple. Otto goes on to say, USC 2070-01, 701, retention and preservation of the records and papers by officers of elections, deposit with custodians, penalty for violation. Every officer of election shall retain and preserve for a period of 22 months all records and papers which come into possession relating to any application. Voting records, that they should do that. It's nice that it's a law, but if you don't enforce the law, does it matter? Do you know there's been over 500 people arrested in Minnesota, and I think a similar number in Portland for rioting and actual crime. Every single one of them were released, and I believe until the federal government came in and decided to enforce federal crimes and get them in front of federal prosecutors, none of them were prosecuted. What does it matter? You have a law. If the law says I can go out and I can destroy your business, let me rephrase that. If the law says that I can go out and I can break your business's windows, as we have seen in New York City and Chicago, across the nation, the Chanel store, whatever store, that I can go out and I can break the windows, and that I will be arrested because that is a crime, and then I am released without fear of being prosecuted, without fear of punishment, and had someone pay my bail. There is no punishment. You might as well not have the law. The law doesn't matter. And while Otto says $1,000 for committing a crime isn't much of a crime, well, here's the thing. It doesn't matter. There is no incentive. You got someone paying that $1,000 for you. You have the DA coming out because they're a Democrat and they're in a Democrat city run by a Democrat governor, and they're being told, we're not prosecuting these cases. You know what that means? When you say that you're not going to prosecute a crime, you are telling every single criminal there, go commit crime. Why not? You're not going to get in trouble. We're not going to stop you. That's what they are saying. And it's not subtle. If I can't get in trouble, if I will not get arrested because I have a, quote, riot, and I break down the windows of a pawn shop, of a grocery store, of an electronics store, Best Buy, and I take everything in that store and I rob them, which makes it a riot that I'm in. These are crimes. And the police catch me and they let me go. And the prosecutor lets me go. And I will not, and I am told directly, I will not be punished for that. Why in the world wouldn't I go back out to the next Best Buy and get the rest of the stuff I didn't get the first time? What's the incentive? Where is the punishment? There is a reason why laws have punishments. Because otherwise, you're just going to do it. How hard of a concept is this? You're not helping anyone by saying we won't prosecute the crimes that they have committed. That's why we see that we have seen violent shootings and we have seen violence overall increase. Violent crime has increased in every single one of these cities with major riots. All of them. Every single one. Prove me wrong. Show me the data that shows even one that hasn't had that happen, because it doesn't exist. There is no evidence of that. There is evidence that in every single one of these cities where they have allowed rioters and protesters and looters to continue to go back and back and back with no penalty of law, they have gone out and committed more and more and more crimes. And those crimes have become more and more and more violent. And if there is a Democrat, if there is a liberal, if there is a progressive, and those are all different things. A Democrat is not a liberal, is not a progressive. They're not the same thing. But if anybody on that left side wants to tell me, Mike, you just got it wrong, show me the data. Please, I will apologize publicly if I am wrong. I am unaware, and I believe there is no existence of this data anywhere that shows that I am wrong. But you are welcome to send me the link. You are welcome to contact me, 607-242-1582, and tell me how I am wrong. Please show me the data. I will be happy to put it out publicly and apologize if I am wrong. I'm a big enough of a man. I have enough confidence in myself. I am more than happy to say I got it wrong. I haven't gotten this wrong. That evidence does not exist. But again, this is part of what we're talking about here today. What happens if you disagree with the left? What happens when you disagree with the left? Facebook shuts you down. Facebook hides you. Twitter shuts you down. You have protests and violence that is promised. Really, I got to update that. They promise, there you go. This is across the United States. These are all the events, all the protests, and I guarantee you all the areas that you're going to see violence. With threats of being a second world war. And they're going to denounce you. They're going to attack you. They're going to tell you how you're evil and a sellout. Even as they manipulate the information that you're getting. And they're more than willing to use violence against you. My God, people, how is that not terrifying? How is that not terrifying? How is that not newsworthy? How is that not something we absolutely need to be talking about right now? How is that not something that makes you say, I have to go out and vote? Because you can vote for this or you can vote against this. That is your choice. I'm not telling you which one it is, but I am telling you this is the reality of your vote. Because you are voting either to be able to suppress people, to demonize people, to attack people based on their political and personal beliefs, or you're voting to protect them and to have free speech. You're either voting to allow a monopoly of companies to control the way you think and what you do, or you believe in freedom of the business from those businesses and that they have to follow rules. You believe laws have a purpose and that when someone breaks those laws, they have to be punished. Or you think that criminals should be able to get away with whatever they want, depending on who's in power today. I mean, imagine if a bunch of people on the right got together and decided to, as was said by the Democratic Socialists in Ithaca, and said, hey, we're going to grab some flags and we're going to get people riled up. And imagine that was someone on the right who did that. Imagine if that was someone who was right-leaning that did that. And said, hey, we forced people inside. We scared them away. We intimidated them with force and threats of violence and intimidation and fear. Do you think the left might have a problem with that? Just maybe? Like they'd lose their minds quickly. So why is it okay for them and bad for anyone else? I mean, guys, come on. This isn't rocket science. It's part of the reason why we see that justice, where is it? I had her image. Didn't I have it? No, I have it here. There it is. Amy Coney Barrett. Amy Coney Barrett probably one of the most intelligent women I've seen in the legal system. Brilliant woman, incredibly qualified. And yet the biggest argument against her is, you don't think like the people on the left, you are evil. They're attacking her family. They're attacking her religion. They're attacking her as a woman. Kamala Harris is a woman. Joe Biden is a Catholic. Nancy Pelosi is a Catholic. What's the problem? Oh, because she's on the right, because she's a conservative, because she has a personal belief that is guaranteed by the First Amendment, that is guaranteed by the Constitution. It's the reason why we created the United States of America. And that makes her evil. Evil. A woman who's so brilliant, she can take on members of Senate by herself. The senators have staffs, dozens of people doing intense research. Look at Senator Hirono out of Hawaii, as she's combing through her books and pages upon pages of information highlighted for her to be able to ask a question. And this woman's able to respond off the top of her head based on her memory, because she's qualified. And what's the determining factor for someone to become appointed to the Supreme Court? That they are qualified. Not because they believe in what the left believes or what the right believes. Not because they are beholden to any political party. But again, just like with everything else we've talked about today, if you're not part of the left, if you disagree with the far left, their answer is, let's pack the courts, which is just, it's the best way to destroy the Supreme Court, which in fact is actually what they want to do, because that's destroying America. The Democratic Socialists are being very, very consistent. Destroy this. They want to pack the courts, effectively destroying any confidence and credibility of the Supreme Court. All because this woman is qualified. Because ACB is qualified, they want to destroy the courts. And they want to pack the courts, making it useless, which helps to destroy America, because the Supreme Court is one of the three equal branches of our government: legislative, executive, and judicial. And if you destroy one of those three, you destroy America. And that's what the Democratic Socialists want. They want a socialist state. They don't want America. That's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, wants. That's what they're pushing for. That's what Kamala Harris wants. That's what they're pushing for. That's what BLM and Antifa, that's what they want. They want America that doesn't exist, that doesn't guarantee the freedom of speech. They want to control the speech. They don't want you to have the ability to defend yourself with arms. They want to remove the Second Amendment so that they can have all the weapons and force their will on you. They want to destroy America. They're very, very consistent. And you've got a lot of people in the news media who are more than willing to, cover up for them and make them look good and try and give you excuses on why it's okay that they are breaking the laws, that they are committing crimes and harming you. It's really, really sad. And from Scotland, we hear an auto says, I should say anarchistic. There's a reason why anarchist states have never lasted. I should say anarchistic societies, as they reject the state. Jason from Bing mentions, hey, Jason, he's a fast thinker. I'm surprised Jason and Jean have been quiet today. But I love it. I love hearing, but we're hearing from Scotland, so I'm very happy. You're right. And Hot mentions they want to make you subject to the crown like Canada or Australia. I wish, because you know what? I'd rather, if I had to go to another system, the Canadian, the Australian systems are at least reasonable. They're close. They're not America. They're not free, but they're close. It's a lot better than becoming North Korea. It's a lot better than becoming Venezuela. Do you notice 4 years ago, the left couldn't help but keep on saying every day, Venezuela is great. America needs to be like Venezuela. We have to become socialists like Venezuela. Bernie Sanders couldn't shut up about it. When was the last time you heard anyone mention Venezuela? Could it be 2 years ago when they killed 5,000 of their own people, as their people starved to death, as they migrated in chains of thousands of people to try and illegally enter the United States with various diseases, according to the World Health Organization? Do you think maybe that was a reason why they stopped mentioning Venezuela as this utopia of socialism? Because they figured it out, because they had the right socialism. They got it right this time. That's the answer they always give. They always promise utopia. They never deliver on it, but they are sure to punish you and me for it. My phone is down. Oh, folks, if I apologize if no one's been able to call in because the phone's been down. I apologize. Thought it was up and running. Maybe that's why no one's called in. Oh my God, I feel so bad. Okay, the phone's going to be up in a second, folks. Thank you for letting me know that, Jason. We're going to get that up for you in just 1 second. Now, folks, by the way, before I get to Jason with that, I want to make sure, did everyone like this video? The little video thing where I'm going through and I'm doing the video, a summary of the show beforehand. That one was about 2.5, almost 3 minutes long. Was that good for you? Do you think it's a good idea, or do you hate it? Just let me know. Because if you don't like it, I won't do it. If you do like it, I'll keep doing it. And it's up to you guys. I know I've heard from a couple people who said they like it, but more people, more information. Okay. The phone is up now. The phone is on. We apologize. The phone number is 607-242-1582. I really would love to hear from anyone from the left on that. Larry, if you want to tell me how I'm wrong on this. Here we go. Hello, and thank you for joining us at No Soundbites Allowed. My name is Michael, Dragon of the Frontier, and whom am I speaking to?
Hey, Mike, it's Jason.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah, it's good to hear that you're up. Yeah, I wanted to talk about some of the the points with Ice Cube, and just the conversation and the way he was vilified. And it was interesting. One of the things I noticed is that the left is very good at doing is making sure that he's not able to really talk about ideas, and expand upon them. Instead, it was all the focus on the fact that he was, actually having a conversation with the Republican Party, and then they wanted to tear him apart from that.
Oh, absolutely. When he was on with Chris Cuomo on CNN, Chris Cuomo he kept asking only for one thing. Are you working with Donald Trump? Are you supporting Donald Trump? Are you endorsing Donald Trump? That was the only thing Chris Cuomo cared about, because he wanted to have the record show, no, he isn't. So that he could go and that their election push for black people to vote Democrat was preserved. See, black people, he's not really going to vote Republican. He's staying a Democrat. He's on our side. He's still on the right side. He's still doing the right thing. That wasn't it. Because if you listen to, and as I played in the video, and if you see the full video of their conversation, Ice Cube is consistently saying he could care less about the politics. He wants an effect. He wants someone to do something. And in fact, the only one who's been doing anything, as documented, has been Donald Trump. He's done more of the things that Democrats have promised to do for the black Americans than any of them have done in 50 years. So he didn't care. And it's not like he didn't go to Biden. He went to him. And Biden said, let me do the same thing I've always done. Vote for me and, we'll talk about it later. So they're very much demonizing it. And I think this video with Chris Cuomo makes it very clear. I don't know if you've seen it. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I think honestly I might have just seen clips of it, but yet no, I mean I've been following through and reading conversations. I know I've been actually following Larry Elder, has been commenting on Ice Cube's a lot of the information is coming through, and just all these facts about the black community, and what the Democrat policies exactly are and how they are being harmful to the black community. And one of the things I got to say though is that when you look at policy wise, and you look at what Trump has done, certainly there are certain programs that he has done, maybe specifically trying to target black communities, but overall it wasn't a policy that he was focused on the color of somebody's skin or the race. He was simply implementing economic policies that is good for America and the country itself. And one
Yeah.
thing I did have an opportunity to do is I went on the Biden Harris website to actually see what they said they wanted to do with race and what they wanted to do with economics.
Nothing.
And when you read through there, and I actually would, I was going to ask you if you can actually just maybe go on there yourself and do a breakdown and kind of analyze their position, because when I was reading it, one of the things that just kind of dawned on me is a lot of the proposals they wanted to implement is what actually put us in the 2008 economical crisis and the bubble that we got into.
Well, they want to increase taxes day one,
Well, that too.
which is going to, economically, that means they're going to destroy the economy. Well, I mean, and I'll use it in terms of my local community, Southern Tier, New York. We had 30% of revenues disappeared overnight because we had the COVID-19 shutdown. We have since had several periods, most recently 7 days, where we've had businesses shut down, where people were told not to go out, not to go to businesses, which led to most recently a diner, the Red Oak, amongst many other businesses, shutting down. Red Oak had been around for 40 years, and now it's gone because there's no business. People aren't coming out. They're not encouraged to come out. They're encouraged to stay in their homes and be afraid and vote Democrat. That's what they're being told. They're not being told, go out and have a business, live your life. So when you have that, and then you're going to say, and we're going to increase your taxes, that 60% of Americans are going to have their taxes increased, even as many of these businesses are shutting down or reducing the number of people working. I don't know how many businesses I can name off the top of my head where people are working reduced hours because the place isn't open enough and isn't selling enough to be able to pay for people to be working full time. People are being hurt. They can't afford this, which is turning people towards alcoholism. It's turning people towards drugs. It's creating more instances of domestic abuse. It's causing more people to commit suicide. If you were to add up all the people who've committed suicide, I think that number alone is almost as many people who have died from COVID by itself. Then add in the number of people who are being harmed and hurt by domestic abuse. And just those two numbers are greater than the number of people who who are suffering or died from COVID. Now, it's hard to say that with absolute, because guess what? The government stopped giving us those numbers. They stopped giving us the numbers because they were up at that point, which was back in June. They were up between 30 to 300% in each category. 300% increase. That's ridiculous. That's 60,000 people committing suicide. That's enormous. And that's the last number that we knew of. And they don't want to tell you what the number is again. It's scary. And so that's what Biden-Harris support.
You're 100% right. And one thing about the coronavirus and policy-wise that really kind of pisses me off the most is that people are talking about the number of people who've died. And yet, when I look at what's happening is that all they've done, they are simply have delayed the inevitable and actually even made it worse. Because if, for example, having elderly and more vulnerable people actually, stay kind of maybe, seclude themselves away from the general population, and then let the rest of the population who's healthy, go and do their thing. Well, what's happening is that you are seeing now that this is getting drawn out so far that a lot of people are just giving up and going, hey, I don't care anymore. I mean, I'm listening to, elderly people, on the radio who are probably like 80, 85 years old, have like type 2 diabetes. And yeah, at the beginning of the pandemic, they're willing to shelter down, but at this point, they're just like, screw it. I'm just going to go to the casino as soon as they open up, And so what's going to happen? They're going to end up getting it anyway. And so we're going to go through all this economical hardship, and all these vulnerable individuals are going to end up getting it in the end anyway. And there will be no difference. And, policy after policy, and the way this is being implemented on an emotional level and with no rational, logical execution, I mean, when it comes to our own area, you mentioned the diner that shut there, the Red Oak that, shut down. And what happened is that, as we know, is that when they were all shut down, they shut down and they laid off all their people. And they had them, out. But the thing is that when the government came back in and said, hey, we're going to allow you to go at 50% capacity, and if it gets to this level or this is the marker, then we'll shut back down. Well, we never got to those markers, and we didn't have any of that happen. But anyway, our own executive decided to take it upon himself to start telling people not to go out to restaurants. Well, guess what? That restaurant had already hired back all those people, ordered all that food, and they were only able to sell 10% of what they actually even brought back in. And then they had all those employees and overhead to go on. And guess what happened? They basically just went bankrupt. And that's happening all the way, through every business in our society. And the thing is that these politicians, not only are they just, economically illiterate, they just don't have the moral courage to basically tell it how it is and say, this is the facts, people are going to die. Businesses are, going to fail if we don't do this, and our societies, we know it, will not be able to thrive unless we get, things moving again.
Well, for clarification, first, Otto from Scotland, I love it. And if you're from other countries, folks, just let me know. It's just great to know that we're hearing from you guys. I think he left, so I was very happy to have him with us and having his thoughts. The county executive you're speaking about, for people to know, the county executive of Broome County is Jason Garnar, who I personally know, and I've had discussions with him before on and off over the years. And I've interviewed him on this program before. So I don't want you to think like, oh, well, I'm just picking on him because I don't know who he is. I know exactly who he is. I know him personally. I've spoken with him many times, and he's been on the show. So we're not picking on him unfairly. These are his policies. These are the results of his policies as contained by the guidelines of Andrew Cuomo. Remember, it's Andrew Cuomo who shut down New York State, not President Trump, not the United States government. It was Governor Cuomo, just like Governor Whitmer, like Governor Newsom. They shut down their states. They control the state. They shut it down. It is Governor Cuomo who has added so many restrictions that so many businesses have closed throughout our region. Maine's, there's a laundromat right next to me here in my region, in my local community, a Catholic Charities thrift store, all gone because they shut down the businesses and told people don't go out to businesses. And I know that when you go to, and I'm at the Joe Biden site right now, joebiden.com, and it happens to mention that, and I just happened to go into the section on building back better, which is, make America great, advancing racial equity, advancing racial equity. And he wants to mention the economic crisis has hit Black and brown communities especially hard, with Black unemployment at 15.4%, Latino unemployment at 14.5%, and businesses owned by minorities closing down at alarming rates. You know what he's leaving out of that? Where were they before Governor Cuomo and Democratic governors across the nation shut down the businesses? Where were they before that? We had an unprecedented increase in the number of Black-owned and minority-owned businesses. We had unprecedented low unemployment for Blacks, for women, for Asians, for Hispanics. They caused this problem. They shut down the government. They, for a disease that is somewhere in the 98th percentile survivable. overwhelmingly survivable for the overwhelming majority of America. They did this. And now they're blaming the other side, saying, well, it's a crisis caused by this, it's Orange Man bad. Wait a minute. Orange Man didn't shut down the states. Governor Cuomo and the other Democratic governors did. Orange Man bad didn't stop the Red Oak Diner from being able to get customers in or to be able to make a profit. That was Jason Garnar. That was Governor Andrew Cuomo. And we have a lot of elected officials. And at the moment, I'm going to pick on my political opponent for a second, folks. So I'm disclosing that clearly. I have a bias here. But, Bob Wessler, a legislator, these elected officials won't even be honest and tell people what's going on because Mr. Wessler shut down his page. They literally are blocking you from seeing what's going on. Very much like what we see with what Facebook and Twitter did. They block you because you're not agreeing with them. So rather than show you the truth, they want to hide it from you, or they're going to lie to you or tell you part of the story and not the whole story. And that's very upsetting, I think. I mean, what do you think, Jason?
Yeah. So, I got a couple comments on, a few of those things.
Okay. We got about 3 minutes there.
Yeah, sure. Jason Garner, the situation there, being totally, like I said, I was trying to be fair, with actually, laying out the policy that he implemented. But I have to make another note too on the policy. See, when New York State came and I think it was I think it was 3 days after he said that everybody should stay home for 7 days, irregardless of what the current policy was for businesses at that point. The following week, we came up with those 3 different zones, which gave you a different suggestion based upon, obviously the number of coronavirus cases that were in the area. Well, the thing is that Jason Garner, even after that that mandate came out, he still continued to suggest that restaurants continue to only do takeout and for people not to dine in. And the thing is that by telling them to do that, he was telling individuals that he wanted to implement red zone policies when we were actually only in a yellow. So he was telling us by saying that he was superseding what the regulation that the governor had actually put out and actually made more restrictions, putting a further burden on our economy. And then, the other thing I wanted to mention too is you were talking about Biden there and the economic position of all the layoffs and everything that was happening within the Black community, and that's totally true because the thing is that the majority of Black populations which are within cities are all Democrat owned, and it's all their
majority, not all, but many. Yes.
Well, the majority. I would say the majority of. I don't have the stats on exactly what it is, but the thing is though, those policies which actually increase the deaths of a numerous number of individuals in those communities were based on the policies. Because the thing is that as we know now is that especially the elderly and the older individuals were the most vulnerable. Instead of having the policies where they allowed to have all the schools open and everything going, they ended up taking all the children and pretty much, dumping that onto, the families to try to figure things out. Well, with the majority of individuals in, had occupations where they had to go to work, guess where the kids were going? Kids were going to the grandparents' place, and then, everybody was going inside. And so instead of leaving the kids at the schools and keeping them safe there, they actually brought them back into the house, to actually cause more harm to the most vulnerable people. But I mean, that's the same policy as you look at what Governor Cuomo did with the freaking retirement, homes. So
well, that's why 12,000 people died. It's the short-sighted nature of many of the politicians and many of the people like the Democratic Socialists and the BLM and the Antifa. They're short-sighted. They have a goal. They don't care about the consequences of anything else but getting their goal. And that is dangerous. And that's what elections are meant to prevent. I know, and Otto from Scotland is still with us, which is great, and mentioned that, Jeff Bezos has made a lot of money and could have paid his employees, all of them, $100,000 and still be as wealthy as he was from before the pandemic started. And local businesses are shutting down. I want to address that real quick. And Jason, I thank you for your comments. And just in case anyone else wants to call in, I want to make sure they get a chance to.
Sure,
okay?
no problem.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Bye.
And folks, yes, YouTube, and I apologize that the phone was down because technology happens. So I apologize for that, but the phone is up now and you can call into 607-242-1582, or you can leave your comments on Facebook or on YouTube. I want to address this. I'm not upset that Jeff Bezos is making money. I'm not worried and I'm not upset that he's making stupid amounts of money right now. That's the risk of owning a business. And if you time it right, you can make stupid amounts of money. He's doing great. He put the risk in, he's reaping the reward. I'm not upset. And if you don't, and any of the Amazon employees who don't think he's paying them enough money, they can leave and try and find another job. I don't think they're going to find another job that pays quite as well, but they always have that opportunity. I'm not against that. I am against artificially creating an environment where his business is going to outperform every other business because he's open and no one else is. That's a problem. That's a problem that was created by the governors across the country. So it's not that he's doing well because his business model could adapt and could take advantage of the ongoing, ever-changing environment, economic environment. I'm upset. And I'm not saying that you are an anti-capitalist, Otto. I'm not saying that. But I want people to be very clear about this because there's a misconception out there that, oh, Jeff Bezos is so evil. Amazon is so evil. No, they're not. They're a business with a business model that works. And it works well even in times of crisis, as we have seen. That's a smart businessman. He made a great business. It could have failed. It could have not taken off. And depending on how they did the shutdown, his business could have been shut down too. He was at as much risk as any other business out there. It's that we had certain political entities picking and choosing which businesses were going to work. And they picked Amazon over your local mom and pop. And I guarantee you, it's not just in the southern tier of New York. Pick anywhere, any neighborhood, any city across America, and you will find these same numbers. Back in February, we predicted that there could be as many as 20% of businesses that would close forever. We're right. And that's not because Jeff Bezos is a bad guy, whether he is or is not. It's because the governors have no idea of what they're doing. Their knee-jerk reactions being compounded by the abuse of power by individuals like Jason Garnar, the county executive. That's the problem. That's where we have the issue. And again, it's the left, the far left, not the rank and file Democrats, not even liberals, classic liberals, the progressives and the far left have an idea. They want power. They want to have executive powers like Governor Whitmer did, even though she was shut down, even though she was told that, where was it? She was shut down by, and I have the article here in front of me. There it goes. Yeah. Even though she is being consistently told by the Supreme Court, the Michigan Supreme Court, that her executive power grab is unconstitutional, that she has to give up all this artificial power that she has taken. And she's trying to fight that. And the fact is that they caused the problems because of these executive power grabs. They're the consequences. There are 12,000 people dead in nursing homes in New York State alone, 4,000 or more in Michigan alone because of their governors who wanted more power. You want to talk about evil? You want to talk about doing the wrong thing? Talk about getting it completely wrong? And yet, but they're the far left, so newspapers are fighting for them. We see the social media giants are fighting for them, just like Facebook and Twitter is fighting for Joe Biden and denying the New York Post in a manner that has never been seen before for a credible, accredited news agency. And we see this around the world. And Otto, I think you can confirm that this isn't just the United States. This is around the world. We're seeing this in Europe. We're seeing this in the British Isles. We're seeing this in India. We're seeing this in Africa. Are there different levels to it? Absolutely. But we're seeing this consistently. We are seeing a push, and it's being promoted by the media and entertainment. And when you fight against that, you are the problem. You're being demonized. If you think I'm wrong, here's an experiment. Go to, just as an experiment, go talk to anyone you know who supports BLM, Antifa, or is a progressive. Tell them, I think I might vote for Donald Trump. Watch them lose their minds. I am predicting and I am promising you, they will go ballistic. You will be lucky if they don't use the same kind of violence against you like they did in Ithaca. The Democratic Socialists use violence against Americans for simply having an idea, for having a point of view. And you know what? 60% of America won't do it because they are afraid to let anyone know what they actually think, because they're afraid of the violence of groups like the Democratic Socialists of Ithaca and across this nation. You know what? Then vote. Go out, go vote in person, and make your voice heard. Don't tell anyone how you voted for. Lie if you want to, and go vote. Because if you want more of this intimidation, of this fear, of this threat of physical violence, like we see in Ithaca, which we are seeing across the nation, that we're seeing in Portland, in Seattle, in Austin, in Atlanta, in Dallas, in Boulder, in New York City, in Rochester, in Lancaster, in Ithaca now, and I can keep going down a line of cities across this nation. Minneapolis, there are so many more I can name. LA, if you want that, if you want to be threatened, you want people to come up and feel that they can do whatever had to be done against you for having an idea that they don't like, hey, you can make that vote. You may not like the consequences of that vote. And if you think that, well, I believe I'm a progressive, so I'm okay. No, you're not. No, you are not. I guarantee you, you are not. Are you white? Because if you are, you're intrinsically evil. And I don't care if you are a progressive or not, they're coming after you. Are you straight? If you are, they're coming after you. Are you a male? They're coming after you. Are you a straight woman? They're coming after you. We can go down the line. What religion do you believe in? They're coming for you. They want control. And they are willing to punish you if you disagree. And it doesn't matter which side you're on. Ice Cube, as I showed you in the video earlier, in 2016, people loved what Ice Cube had to say. They thought he was great and brilliant. And then in 2020, they think he's a villain. Do you think you're more influential, more powerful, you're better than Ice Cube, that you got more money than Ice Cube? Probably not. Probably not. And if they're willing to try and take him down with all of his money, all of his influence, all of his wealth, and all of his supporters, and if they're willing to take him out and take him down, how are you going to survive against that same onslaught? Jason mentions Otto. How did you come across? Oh, I just came up. Hey, is that how you found me? Okay. Otto's in Scotland, for those who didn't know. And I just came up. I know I can be found in every search engine in the world. I know I've tested it when I was in England back in 2018. I was in England. And then again, no, it was 2019. 2019, I was in England. I was in France, in Paris. And I found the search engines we could be found. But in the United States, we're shadow banned. We're harder to find in the United States than we are overseas, which tells you something. Yeah, if you're cisgendered, you're also evil. You're right. Which, by the way, I don't care what, I barely know what that is. I don't care. That's just another category to say, hey, here's another reason why I can use force and fear and intimidation against you. That is wrong. But these are my thoughts. And you may or may not agree. And that's okay. And that's okay. Because at No Soundbites Allowed, you're not required to believe what I believe. You're not required to agree with me 100%. Because you have the freedom to say whatever you want. Just like Larry did starting off. Questioning why my reasoning is the reason it is. Non-aggression principle. Yeah, for the most part. Although I have no problem with aggression against those who aggress against me. Yeah, I defend myself in a heartbeat. I'm not a pacifist. I don't believe in pacifism. Whether that's pacifism in politics or pacifism in life. If you're being attacked, you should defend yourself. Defend yourself. You should be able to go out there and vote the way you want to vote. To promote the politics you believe in. To express your reasoning for doing whatever it is you do. That is your right in America. It's not your right in Canada. There are words you cannot say in Canada. That is a law. You can only say certain things, otherwise you will be in trouble. The government will hold you and punish you. We see that in many other nations as well. But in America, you can't. Especially if people are looting your business and putting your family's livelihood and safety at risk. Exactly. This is what the Second Amendment is there for. It's one of the many reasons why we have a Second Amendment. It's one of the many reasons why over 4 million new gun owners exist today since the COVID crisis started. And most of those started since June, started buying ammo. And that's why the 22 ammo is almost impossible to find right now, because people are now arming themselves, terrified of this very same kind of violence that I mentioned is being planned, that we see out there right now, not just from Ithaca and their Democratic Socialists, who are socialists, which in other words is a communist, but also that we are seeing this in the form of, where is it? I showed it to you earlier. Oh, the protest. We already know. They're going to be protesting, and they have told us that all across the Eastern Seaboard, all across the Western Seaboard, and even in the middle of America, they are gearing up. Hey, Tina, I'm glad you made it. It's at the end of the show. I've got only about 2 more minutes because that'll be 2 hours. And while I am essentially better, there is a cold, and as you can hear my voice, it's getting a little stuffed up. But I love you folks. You are some of the best people out there. And I love that I'm able to speak with you. And whether or not Facebook allows this to go out, whether or not they shadow ban me, and they do, I love the fact that you guys come out, you tell me, and you don't always agree. Sometimes you tell me I'm completely wrong. You have a different viewpoint altogether. We've had members of BLM on this program before. Larry was on just a little while ago. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to say we have a different opinion. Because I believe, whether elected or not, the more Americans are informed, the more that we think it through, the more that we don't rely on 30-second sound bites, the better our nation will be. Because I think you're all wonderful people. And I think given the opportunity to think through a solution, or rather think through a problem, you'll have ideas for solutions. And the more of us that work on this and try and get to a compromise on that, the better off we're going to be. Because I guarantee you, no one person, no one organization has all the great ideas. And it's definitely not in the progressives. It's definitely not in socialism, where we have seen 150 million people killed around the world, where we see that it has failed and resulted in starvation and death and sickness everywhere in the world that it has been implemented and maintained. That's China, North Korea, that's Russia, that's Cuba, that's Venezuela. Name a country, that's what we see every single time. There is no perfect version. It's always the same version. That's what I believe. You may think I'm wrong, and that's okay. And we look forward to your comments. So we're going to end the show here. I thank everyone who's checked this out. I love the fact that we're getting people from overseas, and I hope you're going to keep coming back. Remember, every Sunday at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, at 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, we do the show live. Usually it's about an hour and a half. Sometimes we go over. We are always open and willing to hear your voices, whether it's in the comments afterwards or during the show. Do let me know what you think of the little video that we're doing, that we've done now twice, that kind of summarizes some of the issues out there. I appreciate you too, Otto. I really do. And I want everyone to be well. I want you to be healthy. Go out and vote, no matter who it's for. Have a reason for that vote, and go out and vote in person. And with that, folks, I'm going to go. Oh, and please, if you did enjoy the show overall, even if you didn't agree, please like and share, because YouTube, Facebook, Google, they believe in shadow banning. They don't want you to hear any of this. So I appreciate your help with that. Everyone, I love you. Be well, and I'll talk to you again very soon.